Hello, EFR 507. My name is Rhodes. Today, my Pecha Kucha will be about who wants to be in international education. This study looks at current international education professionals and looks at demographic characteristics of that group. International education, to define it, is generally the Office of International Programs, the International Center. It is International Student Services. So those are people who help international students with their advising. Education abroad are people who help outgoing study abroad students. International education helps a person gain new perspectives and understand different ways of thinking. So what we're looking at is the demographic characteristics of international educators at universities. If students just see white females, that can be a problem because it could pose a barrier to people who have other identities. So to show you a little bit about what the field looks like, I've done a survey of the websites for various international offices at different universities. I just looked at their staff contact us page. And I should say there's no way to determine a person's gender identity or race based on the photos and names. I've kind of given an overview as to what it appeared to me. And this is based on how a potential person might view looking into getting into that field. Does someone look like me or not? So you can see real quick, just the number of females is significantly larger than the number of males. What we're looking at is why are there so many women in this field? A big part of it is stereotypes. So higher education professionals do often come from humanities backgrounds. That has a lot to do with writing focused. We read that in the Mickelson reading. It also has to do with the stereotypes about interpersonal and face-to-face contact skill. So the focus on male and female professions, it generally doesn't account for things like socioeconomic differences amongst women. So we could be looking at a female-dominated profession and really be looking at a white female-dominated profession, which could be very different from a female-dominated profession that had a little bit more diversity. So I conducted a series of 5 qualitative interviews. My participants have been in the field anywhere from 3 months to 10 years. And they were asked about their perspectives as to why they think the composition of the field is the way it is. Most of them were white. That again represents sort of why we're looking at this study in the first place. So the first part of my survey asked about who ends up in the field, asking their perspectives on who is representative or who is represented, why they think that might be, and if they identify as a member of any of those groups, is there something that like helped specific get into this field? And so I got some really interesting answers. One talked about marketing. So I believe what she's talking about there is some study abroad experiences. The study abroad experience is marketed to women, and that often leads into being an international education professional. Another person, how women don't feel the pressure to finish school and get a job as quickly. Another respondent talked about how, again, the study abroad experience is in a lot of ways the gateway for a person to enter the international education field. So all of these things that contribute to women participating more in study abroad default contribute to women being in international education. So my second question, who is left out and why? What groups face barriers? I had a respondent who talked specifically about men of color, and this was a theme on several respondents, that one is financial barriers, again, going back to study abroad experiences being a gateway. Another was just sort of a lack of support in their program. So the motivations, I asked these people, why did they choose to enter the international education field? If there was like a specific aspect that they found rewarding, and if they felt that their gender had any influence or sexual orientation had any influence. those factors. And most people said something kind of similar to this. My motivations for entering the field are cliche. I want to help people. Again, and this particular respondent talked about how, stereotypically speaking, women are more likely to be nurturing players. So that definitely contributes. And the literature as well. Another response, I was an asshole before I studied abroad, so I entered the field to help other assholes become better human beings, and meeting others where, and helping has been very rewarding. So there was also that theme of wanting to help other people, and I think that that is a broad overall theme, didn't necessarily pertain. My last question was about barriers. What have you faced? And if, what are other barriers you think other people might face? Have you had to manage your emotions? Um, Specifically, what I was getting at with this question was if there was anything about your identity that has kind of been a barrier to you. And the responses I got were these people were already in the field, so no, not many barriers. One of the things that they did talk about, this respondent, was the internship they were able to participate in, and how someone who couldn't take an unpaid internship would not have been able to do that. Again, education being female dominated, being a yes person, all of that. And someone else had talked about how employers were often interested in hiring internal candidates. Egos seem to be a barrier. So it is a well-networked field. It's actually a very small field, and definitely connections are a really big deal. So the findings of this study, it seems like there is an intersection of privilege, and that privilege is definitely more of a Caucasian thing, and stereotypes about caring and nurturing. So this is sort of why it's not just women in this field, but white women. It often starts with studying abroad. And an interesting thing is how it is male dominated in upper level administration. So that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for listening to this. Have a great day.